Hey everyone, it's Jason. Welcome to Red Dragon Ing Allies set. So this is Piper versus Ripsnarl. So after doing a bunch of solo characters, they decided to start doing some dual characters. Which we have a hero and a villain, which is really fun. And it's a good way to add extra villains, plus just add to the overall story and world of the Red Dragon Ing. So we have Piper, the Ranger, versus Ripsnarl, the Werewolf. And they come right from the Greyport, the Greyport series of games. So they were already pre-existing characters and got added into this. So of course we're gonna get our regular instructions, which will explain how each character works, which I'll just go over as I go through their decks, and things like that. So we got that. We are going to get our token with our sheet of tokens. So now these sets come with smaller gold pieces than the original ones, which have actually fairly bigger ones. And then they got rid of the glass beads and they just started only using the tokens here. Probably just cheaper to do that. Might be a little bit easier for people to remember which is which too. Alcohol and heart. Smaller gold, it's kind of your choice whether you like that or you want the bigger gold. Bigger gold's easier to handle if you're just grabbing some here and there, but it also takes up a lot more room, where you could have just as many of these small ones. The only thing that sucks there is that if you have a ton, if you only have like one of this set and one of the other one, then you have different size gold for everybody. We also get their player boards. So these were, if you're not familiar with these, if you've only seen the first couple of sets, they started putting these in everything after set number 5. Set number 5 comes with them available for all previous characters. And it's just so that each character has their own board with so you can track their fortitude and their alcohol content, deck, discard, and drink me piles. But then they also have stuff on the borders if they have special decks. Like she has a quiver deck, and her arrow discard pile. So it keeps track of her stuff there. Where Ripsnarl has a form marker that you can put up at top. Just like, hey, you have extra components, this is kind of where you can put them. Gives you your turn order, and like if they have something special, like Piper does. Discard and draw arrows and do special actions. It just tells you all those different stuff. So that's actually kind of fun there. And then we had some more components here for Ripsnarl, which we'll go into more when we go into his deck. But we'll look at Piper first. So here's Piper's card. The other thing we're, of course, going to also get with these are deck dividers. This also works for box number 5, which is a storage box. So it puts in there, you can see right across the top, the little A up at the top indicates they're from the Ally set. So Piper is our Eagle Eye Sniper. On the back, it's going to explain how her deck works. So it says, shuffle your quiver and place it near your pile, and draw 1 card from your quiver and 6 cards from your hand. So she has her regular deck, where she's the Eagle-Eyed Sniper, the Elf Ranger, and then she has her quiver deck. Like lots of other characters, she gets to draw from this deck and do stuff. But hers actually works very differently. So it says, during your discard and draw phase, your first draw comes from your arrows. So if you're drawing up to your hand size of 7 cards, your first card always comes from your arrow, so you'll always draw an arrow every turn. So you'll always have an arrow in your hand. And then after that, everything else comes from your regular deck. During your action phase, you may play 1 action card from your hand, or as many arrow action cards as you like. Arrows are subtypes, sometimes maybe play like normal sometimes cards. And your hand says it's still 7, and arrows still count towards it. So as these cards come in your hand, they still count as part of your hand. But if your quiver ever runs out, you are out of the game. So it's kind of a neat thing, because most of these games is like, hey, if that deck ever runs out, you just reshuffle it and you keep reusing it. But hers is, once it's gone, it's gone. So you really have to play these when they make the most sense. But what's also neat is that you can chain them together, so you can fire 3 or 4 arrows at a time if you want. So maybe it might be worth spending a bunch of them to do like one really good effect, maybe eliminate one or two players, versus only playing one at a time. It's really cool. Very, very different way to do that. Alright, so we're going to start off by looking at the cards everybody has. The main cards, which are Gambling, I'm in. So it's an action gambling card. At the start of a round of gambling, each player, including you, must ante or take control a round of a gambling. And she has 6 copies of that. She has 2 copies of I raise. Take control around your gambling. Each player, including you, must ante again. 2 copies of Winning Hand. Take control around of gambling. The next card to take control must be a cheating card. Tip the Wench. Pick a player. That player pays 1 gold to the ing. 2 copies of Wench. Bring some drinks from my friends. You may play this card during an order a drink phase of your turn. Pay 1 gold to the ing. Order 2 additional drinks. Drinks may be placed in any other player's drink me piles. The Wench thinks you should stop playing with the drinks. Negate a sometimes card that changes the effects of a drink. This includes negate, ignore, split drinks, pass drinks to another player, or alter any of the drink's effects. This card can only be affected by I don't think so. And then we have I don't think so. Sometimes. Negate a sometimes card. This card can only be affected by another I don't think so. Now, those are basically the cards that every single character in the game has. Some players have some variations on I don't think so, called we don't think so, if they have multiple people in their, they have like companions with them, but it works the same way. Some characters have, Wench, bring some drinks from my friends. They have a different variation of that. Which might let them either get it for free or pay extra gold to get more things, or some small thing like that. All the rest of the cards, pretty much everybody has, but some of them have them in different combinations. So some might have 5 of the Gambling I'm in, some might have 2 copies of the Tip the Wench, but those are the generic, not the generic, but the base cards that almost every character gets. Then there's a lot of the other cards that have very similar effects to each other, but they're all named very differently, so I don't call them the same cards. Alright, so she has a sniper, always knows when to shoot. Start a round of gambling. Each player, including you, must ante. This card may not be negated. Players may not play cards to avoid or voluntarily leave this round of gambling. Players may play cards which cause other players to leave. This card may not be used to take control around of gambling, which is already underway. 2 copies of Knock and Load. You may play this card immediately after you lose Fortitude from a card played by another player. You may not play this card if you reduce that Fortitude loss. That player loses 2 Fortitude. You don't collect scars by being a wimp. Gain 1 Fortitude. 2 copies of Target Practice. Flip Tang. Ignore a drink. Ignore an event, drink, action, sometimes, or anytime card that affects your Fortitude. It's actually pretty good. You'll never catch me flat-footed. Ignore an action, sometimes, or anytime card that affects your Fortitude, alcohol content, or gold. You may not use this card to ignore a round of gambling. No thanks, I'm good. Negate a sometimes card that would give you a drink to you, split a drink with you, or change the effect of a drink you are about to drink. This card may not be used to negate a card that would force you to drink or give you a copy of a drink. 2 copies of Never Miss a Shot, sometimes card. Ignore a drink. So that's what was rattling around in my quiver. You may play this card when you're about to lose a gold. Use a gold from the ing rather than your own stash. Draw an arrow card. 2 copies of Not Now. This bow needs restringing. You may play this card when you must ante. Instead of anteing, you leave the round of gambling, or ignore a drink. You know I catch crooks for a living, right? Negate a cheating card. The player who played it may play a gambling card or pass. They may not play another cheating card. drawing arrow card. I like to chase these other cards that let her draw extra arrows as well. Frighteningly impressive marksmanship. You astound and terrify the others. Each player pays you 1 gold. 2 copies of Yes, They Are Razor Sharp. Pick another player, they lose 1 fortitude. You may put a discarded arrow on top of your quiver. That's super helpful. 2 copies of Oh, I Hate When My String Breaks. Pick another player, they lose 2 fortitude. And finally, Quick Draw Holster. Draw an arrow card. So that's all her main stuff. So it's pretty straightforward. A couple of the ones that let her draw cards. I think her mechanic or gimmick, as I like to call them, will be in her arrow cards. So here's her quiver deck. She has the necessary arrow. So all of them will list as arrow at the top, and then they'll say action or sometimes. Draw 2 arrow cards. Note to self, more arrows. The Impale arrow. Reduce alcohol content of a drink by 2, reducing it to 0. Below 0, reduce it to 0. Reveal the drink first. Thunk. The Million arrow. Gain 1 gold from the ing. Kaching. The Aerogue. You may play this card when another player plays a cheating card. You may not play it if you have already left the round of gambling. Negate the cheating card. The player who played that card loses 2 fortitude. Take control of the round of gambling and continue the round. Sniper beats Rogue. The Unpharaoh. Each other player loses 1 fortitude. For target rich environments. The Elsewhere arrow. Ignoring action sometimes or anytime card that affects your fortitude. Better go look for that one. The Caro. Gain 2 fortitude. Pick another player. That player gains 2 fortitude and then pays you 1 gold. Arrow. You okay? Like, are you okay? The Aelro. Pick another player. They lose 1 fortitude. Put a card from the Drink Me deck, or from the drink deck into that player's Drink Me pile. It's good for what ails you. The Harrow with Pookie, of course. Pick another player. You and each of that player lose 1 fortitude. Drawing arrow card. A harrowing experience. There's a Sparrow. You and another player each gain 1 gold from the ing. How did that get in there? The Perro. Pick up to 2 other players. They each lose 2 fortitude. Pew pew. The Flaro. Pick another player. They lose 3 fortitude. You pay 1 gold to the ing. Another table. Welp. The Shero. Pick another player. They pay you 1 gold and draw an arrow card. Sharing is arrowing. And finally, the Arrowing. Pick another player. They lose 1 fortitude. If they lose fortitude this way, the next player in turn order loses 1 fortitude. Repeat this process until a player does not lose fortitude, or until the next player who loses fortitude would be you. Ow. Ouch. Hey. Ow. That's actually really fun. Also really cool about her deck with these arrow cards is they're all different. They could have easily just combined a bunch of them up, or just had like a bunch of generic things like, oh, she has like 3 regular arrows that just do 1 fortitude damage. But then they made them all like fun little gimmicky stuff, makes it a lot more interesting. Alright, then up next we have Ripsnarl Bad Dog. So being a boss, he has a secondary boss deck as well. So you can play his regular deck, or you can play boss. It was set number 6, which is villains, which explains the boss rules, but just a quick gist into how this works is, take his regular deck, Ripsnarl Bad Dog, the human werewolf, and you can play it in any mode, just as regular. Versus anybody else, you can play against Piper, these guys can add into any game. Or you can play him as a villain, which then you're playing 1 villain versus 2, 3, or 4 players. And you just to add his extra villain deck in there, which gives him this extra stack of cards. which are a little bit more powerful, but that's why they're not included in the regular deck. You can also play several other variant modes, which could be, because you can play regular teams like 2v2 if you want, instead of a free-for-all, and do stuff like that. And with that team variant, that way you can also do stuff like play boss versus boss, or everyone's a boss if you have enough boss characters, to make the game really crazy. Or you can play, I think it's called like leaders and lackeys. You can play a 2v2 game, but one player plays a boss, and one player plays another character. And yeah, there's some other rules about when you're playing against a team, but you can check out video number 6 for that. So I'm not going to re-explain them all in this one, just because it's just one character. Alright, so let's hop in and see what he does. So, Ripsnarl the bad dog has a special form markers. So he gets his one of these 2 different squares or symbols. So he gets the square one for if he's playing regular deck, the circle one if he's playing the boss deck, and then his other little fang tokens. This is actually not his form. This is his fury down here. So as he does stuff, they'll give him fury. Once you have 3 on your form marker, if he turns in, you may have up to 3 in there. So the regular one, you can put 3 up here. And if you're already in the boss mode, he starts with 1 built in, and you can gain 2 more. And whenever you turn into a wolf, remove all the fury tokens from your marker. And then each token removed may be used to make a player lose 1 fortitude. These effects may target the same player or different players, and commonly came as sometimes cards. 1 card per player targeted. So someone has to stop each one you target. Yeah, it's basically while you're in human form, you can build up these fury markers, and then when you flip to your werewolf form, he does extra damage. He basically likes to be in his werewolf form, so that counter also tracks on which side you're on. So if you're in human, you're on one side. When you flip the werewolf, you flip it to the other side just to keep track, because various cards will affect what he is. But he likes to be in his werewolf form, so he's always trying to get back to that. He has only 5 copies of Gambling I'm In instead of 6. He's still got 2 copies of I Raise. So now his cards are going to be have 2 other things that are a little bit different. One, some of the artwork is going to look a little different, or the names going to be a little bit different because it's using the villain's aesthetic. So if like we looked at Piper's cards here, let's see if I can find them. Like there's her hands. There's the hands of the regular adventurer. There's the hands of the villains. It's going to be the same thing. The wench is going to be the villain wench versus the Red Dragon Ain wench. So little things there. Also, up on the top corner, he has a crescent moon symbol. If that's on a card, it doesn't do anything in itself, but it does mention down here it turns him to human. So it'll be just an indicator that he has a potential form change. It might not always be active, but it's something that could happen. So he has 2 copies of Winning Hand, 2 copies of Wench, bring some drinks for these fiends. This is his version, and instead bring some drinks for my friends, but it works the same way. He can tip the wench. The wench thinks you should stop playing with the drinks, and his I don't think so card. Alright, then his next cards is he has a cheating card. I love this. I love this guy's cards. It's so funny. Look over there, a vampire. Usually the cards that say look over there to distract someone is they're pointing off the picture to something that nobody can see. So it's just so hilarious that he's literally pointing at one of the other players in the game. And that's Vaslo, who's also from the villain set. I can smell how bad your hand is from here. Take control of a round of gambling. Pick another player and force them to leave the round of gambling. Turn wolf. 2 copies of Curse These Frail Human Hands. Turn human, then pick another player. They lose 2 fortitude, gain 2 fury. And if it's on the top, you always have to do stuff in top order. So you have to turn human first, and then do the other things. 2 copies of Seething Fury. If he's human, you gain 1 fury. Now, if you're the wolf form, you just can't play this card. You can't play it. This is a waste of a turn. Old Dog, New Tricks. If you're a human, pick 2 other players. They each pay you 1 gold. Turn wolf. If you're a wolf, each player pays you 1 gold. And we have Not Now, I'm Sharpening My Claws. You may play this card when you must ante. Instead of anteing, leave the round of gambling. Hey, where'd the big hairy guy go? Ignore an action sometimes or anytime card that affects your fortitude, alcohol, content, or gold. You may not use this card to ignore a round of gambling. Turn human. 2 copies of I'll Save This for a Little Hair of the Dog. Human, reduce the alcohol content of a drink by 1, gain 1 fury. A wolf, reduce the alcohol content by 2, turn human. Who's a good boy? This guy. Add 1 alcohol content to a drink you were about to drink. If you gain alcohol content from a drink, each other player pays you 1 gold. Turn wolf. I'm fine for gold, just keep the silver away. You may play this card when you're about to lose gold. Human, use gold from the inn rather than from your old stash. Wolf, you don't have to pay. Tangle with me and things will get hairy. You may play this card immediately after you lose fortitude from a card played by another player. You may not play this card if you reduce that fortitude loss. If you're a human, that player loses 1 fortitude and you turn into a wolf. Or if you're a wolf, that player loses 3 fortitude. So some good advantages of staying a wolf, but sometimes you're just not going to be able to help it. This will grow some hair on your back. Add 1 alcohol content to a drink. Human, gain 1 fury. Wolf, you may add the effect of plus 2 fortitude to that drink. Sure, Squirrel. You may play this card when you must ante. Leave it around of anteing, and instead of anteing, leave the round of gambling, or ignore a drink. 2 copies of Only a Beast Would Drink This Swill. Ignore a drink. Turn human. 2 copies of Sometimes It Pays to Be a Smaller Target. You may play this card when an action sometimes or anytime this card would make you lose fortitude. Choose 1. Reduce that fortitude loss by 1, or ignore that card and turn human. 2 copies of I'm the Top Dog Around Here. Pick another player whose fortitude is higher than yours. They lose 2 fortitude or gain 1 fury. Either case, turn wolf. 2 copies of Ferocious Slaps. Pick another player. Human, they lose 1 fortitude, gain 1 fury. Or wolf, they lose 3 fortitude. Switch Aroo. You may change form. And then the last one is Dog Pile. You lose 1 fortitude, each other player loses 2 fortitude. Turn wolf. Alright, so that was his main deck. And then we'll take a look at his boss cards. Alright. So the boss cards have a little dragon up in the top just to show that they are different, just so you can keep track. Otherwise, they have the same back, so you can mix them into the deck perfectly. Some of the cards are going to be repeated cards, such as I Don't Think So, so they get extra cards that other characters don't. Everyone normally only has 1. Now they get a second copy. Also helps because they have a bigger deck. But a lot of their cards are going to be like powered up versions of their character, which is really cool. Also, you need a set. So sure, I'll Squirrel. So we get a second copy of that. I think all the rest of his are new. So then we're going to start with 2 copies of The Hunter Remains the Hunter. So this is like his powered up form. You can kind of see a little bit difference in there too. So I looked at his regular wolf form, which is a square is like brown. Here he becomes silver and blue, has glowing red eyes. You'll see more in some of the other pictures. It's like his souped up form when he becomes a boss. Ignoring actions, sometimes or anytime card that affects your fortitude or alcohol content. As a human, gain 1 period, draw 2 cards from your character deck. As a wolf, the player who played the card loses 1 fortitude. Cool. Then he has, I'm a 1 wolf pack. Pick another player. Human, they lose 1 fortitude, gain 1 period, draw 3 cards from your character deck. Wolf, they lose 2 fortitude, draw 2 cards from your character deck. Card drawing, which is really cool. All the villains have one of these cards. The first rule of villainy, his is crush your rivals. Which is really fun because 2 of them are like it's Cromac the Mighty and Brian the Boatswain, and I can't remember the pink-haired girl's name off the top of my head. But yeah, the other 2 are like the big beefy characters, so it's just kind of fun. Each other player discards a sometimes card from their hand unless they reveal a card with no sometimes cards. Each other player loses 1 fortitude. This card can't be negated or ignored. The other thing you're going to notice with the boss cards is they reference other players. So usually in the game, your cards target, sometimes they'll target multiple people, but most time they only target 1 person. Boss cards, because you're playing against a team of adventurers, they always target, lots of them target a lot of characters. Pathetic. Ignoring event or ignoring action, sometimes or anytime card that affects your fortitude, alcohol, or gold. You may not use this to ignore a round of gambling. Ignoring event is a great card because it ignores drink events. If you are playing with the from the villain set, they have the dungeon cards. You have the dungeon events, or set number 4 also has sea events. So there's 3 different types of event cards you could potentially ignore. 2 copies of I Have a Dangerous Hand. Take control a round of gambling. The player who is previously in control loses 1 fortitude. 2 copies of You Can't Make This Dog Lie Down. Change form and draw 2 cards from your character deck or gain 2 fortitude. Here you go, it's Liking Thropalicious. Give a drink you were about to drink to another player. It gains the effect each of your teammates loses 1 fortitude. I Am Fury Unchained. If it's your action phase, you may play another action card this turn. Human, gain 1 theory, draw 3 cards from your deck. Where if pick another player, they lose 2 fortitude. And then finally, he has 2 copies of Armor Schmarmer. Pick another player, they lose 3 fortitude. Effectively ignore the fortitude loss or reduce it to 0. Reduce it to 0 and reduce it to 0, reduce it to 1 instead. There should have been like a comma in there. Threw me off. Yeah, so it's fun. Just definitely extra pretty powerful. Lots of draw extra cards to do more stuff. So it gets more actions. It kind of also works against like Piper's deck in particular because they're enemies. Just because it's like he gets to draw more cards, has more options, the same way she has arrows. So it's kind of a fun like counterpoint or balance. Then the last thing we're going to get in here is called a prize variant. Some of the various sets have these, or you can get these as promo cards. Basically, what these are is during a round of gambling, if you have any of these, you put them into a stack of prizes. Then the first player that goes chooses one of them, puts them in the pot. Whoever wins the pot or wins the round of gambling gets this prize. Then they can use it at some point, and when they do, it goes into a prize bin. Then when all the cards in the initial prize pool are used, you reshuffle the prize bin and then put them back out, so that then they can be used again. Yeah, it's just basically it's just a bunch of different cards that give you extra bonus effects. Instead of winning gold, you can win a special prize. This one is the Bag of Holding. It says when you win this prize, put any number of cards from your hand face down under it. They're no longer part of your hand. At the start of your next action phase, add this card to the prize bin, return all cards under it to your hand. It's interesting, so you can basically get a bunch of extra cards for your next hand, because you could, put 4 cards under there, and then you could now draw your hand back up to 7, depending on how many you had. Then add these extra cards to it. And as long as you have over 7 cards, you don't have to keep drawing. You don't ever have to discard down. And this will go back in, and then someone else might give you a later card. So as you get more and more of these prizes, it becomes a lot more fun. And it's kind of neat because you could play them face down, and then not let people look at them, and then they have to just draw, oh, like, what prize did I win? And you can flip it up when it's in the pot, versus letting people dig through and pick what they want. Or you can let them pick out what they want. Hey, they can put it in there if they think they have a good chance of winning that round of gambling. Because it could be like, this is what I'm betting, you know, which I think I can win. Alright, so that is what we have for the ally set of Piper versus Ripsnarl. So yeah, pick this up, throw it with any big box set you have. Because you need a drink deck. So if you get any other character that has a drink deck, any other box set that has a drink deck, you can start playing regardless of how many players you have. So like Evil Pookie has a drink deck, or the Smorgas box, which is a smaller set, has a drink deck, or the Munchkin set has a drink deck. I think those are the only other 3 that aren't a full set. Otherwise, yeah, you can pick up any of these other sets and mix them out. You could pick up the base game, and then after you buy the base game, you could buy only these small expansions like this, and never pick up another big box again if you choose not to. But if you want to go see all those sets, check out the rest of my videos. See you guys later. Bye.